Hello everyone and welcome to our Getting Started with N-Central APIs Masterclass. Myself, Paul Kelly. Before we go any further, just want to make sure I've clicked on all the right buttons. So maybe if someone can just acknowledge in the questions pane that they can both see my screen and hear me loud and clear, I'd very much appreciate that. Perfect. Getting some thumbs up and all good from Craig. Thanks very much, guys. So this content may contain forward-looking statements regarding future product plans, development efforts. This is just a little message from our legal department, really, to say that anything I say here today is no commitment to deliver any features with any certain timeframes or anything like that as well. I'm sure if you've attended a webinar before, you're well familiar with the statement by now. So just some general housekeeping, guys. All attendees are muted. Please use the questions pane to ask questions and please do so and feel free to do so at any time. I'll do my best to address them as we go through the session today, but if we have any outstanding questions, we'll have some time at the end for further Q&A as well. If you are having any audio or visual issues, the easiest way to let me know is start shouting in the questions pane. Eventually my eye will be drawn over to that side of the screens and I will figure out what's going on, but hopefully, touch wood, we're all good for today as well. And just so you're aware, guys, these sessions are recorded as well, and a recording of which will be sent to you once the session has been complete as well in the coming days as well. So watch out for that. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Paul Kelly. I'm a head nerd here at Enable based in Cork in Ireland. I've been with Enable now for just over 10 years, celebrated my 10th anniversary a couple of weeks ago. And prior to joining Enable, I worked actually at an MSP myself for a period of about 16 years over the course of 2 different MSPs. So I learned a lot about the industry back then, obviously working in the industry, and obviously in the last 10 years, I've been working with a lot of partners that leverage Enable tools as well. My focus on the Head Nerd team tends to be around the N-Central platform. That's why I'm hosting this masterclass today. And that entails things like automation, patching, security. But like all the rest of the Head Nerds, we try and keep our fingers in all the pies, as some of my colleagues like to say, and we try and keep up to date what's happening across our product portfolio and the industry at large as well. My virtual door is always open. My actual door is closed today because I'm doing a webinar and there's kids around the house. It's incredibly warm, so hopefully I don't pass out. And you wouldn't think that in Ireland, but we don't have air conditioning here. So hopefully we'll get through the next hour or so. I may have to open the doors at some stage if the heat keeps up. But if you ever have any questions for me, guys, you're more than welcome to drop me an email, paul.kelly@n-able.com. It can be related to APIs, it can be related to N-Central, it can be just general advice that you want. I'm more than happy to help. Alternatively, if you just want to keep up to date with what I'm at, what boot camps I'm hosting, what masterclass I'm hosting, what events I'm attending, what blogs I've written, for example, you can connect to me on LinkedIn. And if you search up Head Nerd Paul, or if you look at Head Nerd Paul in LinkedIn, you'll find me there and you can connect or follow me there as well. Now, before we dive into APIs today, guys, just a couple points of interest. First of all, we'd love for you as N-Central users to share your insights on N-Central. If you scan the QR code you see on screen here and leave a review on the G2 website, you will receive an Amazon gift card to the value of $25. If you weren't expecting, obviously, to be scanning QR codes in this webinar today, you can always take a screenshot, or you can let me know. I'll be happy to bring these QR codes up for you at the end of the day or at the end of the session as well. Also, guys, as part of the Head Nerds, we are always delivering new content in the form of blogs. And what you can actually do, rather than going to enable.com/blog to see if there's new blogs there for you to read, we do send out a newsletter now once a month, where if you scan the QR code on the screen here, you can sign up and receive that newsletter. So I think we have over 800 people now registered for this. And basically what happens, any new blogs that the Head Nerds write each month will be delivered directly to your inbox as well. I can assure you, if you put your email address into this form, it will not be shared with marketing. It will not be shared with sales. It is only used to deliver the quality Head Nerd blogs that we produce directly to your inbox as well. And last but not least, before we dive into APIs, guys, it is the middle of 2025, but already looking ahead to 2026, and particularly Empower in Fort Lauderdale. It'll be from the 13th to the 15th of April in 2026. And for limited only, if you scan a QR code and screen and register now up until the 30th of September, you can get the avail of the early bird pricing as well. So having been to numerous Empowers over the years, I can assure you, if you've never been, it's well worth your time. It's an amazing experience. I've never had anyone say any bad words or seen any negative feedback about Empower, and it's hugely beneficial both to your experience working with Enable, but also your own business and how you progress as well. So if you haven't done before, guys, I'd highly recommend you look into it, and hopefully we'll see you in Fort Lauderdale next year as well. Okay, that's the admin work out of the way, guys. Let's get down to business, and let's talk about APIs. I should really have an intro slide here, but we'll get straight into it as such. APIs for a lot of people are kind of something that you hear about, know about, but you don't really kind of understand. And with the business that we have in the world today and the amount of jobs that we have supporting customers and end users on a day-to-day basis, we don't always have the kind of time to explore certain features. So hopefully, as we go through this course today, you'll understand what APIs can do and how they can enhance how you can support your customers as well. But before all that, let's kind of just understand what an API is. And an API basically allows communication of information between software applications. So when you think about this, we all have smartphone devices. We're all hoping for warm weather. Maybe I could do a little cooler weather here, but when I open the weather app to see what the weather forecast is going to be for the rest of the day, that weather app is making an API call to a weather service server and pulling that information back for me as such from my location. When I have to send money to someone else, if I use a payment transfer like for Revolut or PayPal, for example, that is using API calls to transfer the funds to and from the different bank accounts as well. Or if you use something like, Find My Phone or device on your iPhone, for example, API calls are using GPS to actually locate a device. So we can see here, even though we mightn't use APIs ourselves in terms of the software applications we use on a regular basis, we are using APIs all the time within our daily life as well. Now, when we talk about N-central APIs, I want to point out that while we're here today to look at specifically N-central's REST APIs, we also have SOAP APIs available in N-central as well. Now, we're not going to focus on the SOAP APIs today, but if you do want to learn more about the SOAP APIs that are available in N-central, maybe you have a preference for it, whatever it may be, you can actually go to Enable You YouTube channel, and you'll be able to find a bootcamp that gives you information on leveraging the SOAP APIs, or you can find that in Enable You as well. Today, as I said, we're going to focus on the N-central REST APIs, and these were added to N-central starting in N-central 2023.9, so the end of that year, and have been enhanced and added to right through last year and into 2025 versions as well. It's important to note the version of N-central you're on, because some of the functionality that's available in the APIs is dependent on the version of N-central you run as well. So if you're not running the latest version of N-central, you may find that some of the functionality is not currently available to you as well. So what do we mean when we say REST APIs? Well, REST API stands for Representational State Transfer Application Programming Interface. It's an architectural style for designing network applications. REST APIs basically enable communication between different software systems over the internet by using standard HTTP methods. So we use things like GET, PUT, POST, PATCH, DELETE, for example. REST APIs are widely used for creating web services that can be easily consumed by various clients. Now, when it comes to obviously accessing these N-central REST APIs, what type of account should you use? Should I use my own account that I access N-central today? Simple answer to that is no. You should be using an API-only user account. I'm going to demo how to create this for you in a moment. But a couple of things to note: when you are creating your API only user account, you need to disable MFA. Obviously, if that is still turned on, your authentication is going to fail. It's not going to work. You're not going to get any information out of the APIs. You should always name it clearly as an API account. So someone obviously is cleaning up the user accounts within your system, and they're wondering what a particular account is doing. If it's got API in there as such, at least they're going to know to query that before they disable it or delete it as well. Give the least amount of privileges required for what you intended to do. So between the roles and the access groups, you can really curtail the permissions that the API only user account has. Now, for the purposes of the masterclass today, we're just probably going to use some default pre-configured settings in terms of roles and access groups. But to give you an idea, in the past, I've worked with using the API to install the N-Central agent, for example, through a script, and I was able to restrict the permissions down to, I think, three roles: one a read and two or one read only, and two manage permissions within the roles features within N-Central such. So you can get very granular with how you obviously control the permissions of the API user account as well. Once you have your user account created, what you're going to do is you're going to generate a JSON web token, and you're going to use that rather than the username and password to authenticate your APIs as well. Now, if you have password management policies in place on your N-Central server, and the account's password policy is to expire every 90 days or something like that, what you need to do with your API users is you need to reset the password, but you don't need to regenerate the JSON web token as such. So if you are using a script continuously to pull information out of your N-Central instance, and you do have a 90-day password cycling policy in place in your N-Central server, you will obviously have to reset the password, but you won't need to reset the JSON web token. And that's why we use the JSON web token to authenticate, as opposed to having to then constantly update username and password credentials in our scripts as well. So what can we do with these APIs? So currently there are, and this is of N-Central 25.2, there are 16 different resource groups that contain 70 sub-resources or functions. I've heard them called a few different names. And these cover a wide range of different functions as such. So we have things like custom properties, tends to be a very common use case to obviously pull custom property information out of the APIs, but also be able to actually set custom properties through the APIs as well. We have our devices, obviously device filters, device tasks. We can get lists of our devices by user accounts. We can obviously trigger actions against these devices as well. This is used very usefully when integrating with third-party ticketing solutions or PSA solutions, for example. Allows you to trigger automation from your PSA solution within your N-Central environment as well. The org units is where we get a breakdown of our customers' sites, service organizations as such. And we also have things like the registration tokens, where, again, particularly handy if you are pulling out reg tokens to install the N-Central agent. So a lot of partners our customers will look to maybe to script the deployment of an agent, maybe push it out via Intune or something like that. By obviously pulling the reg token, you can automate that process of deployment and ensure that the device goes into the relevant customer as well. So question here, is the API functionality the same, assuming NCOD version is the same with NCOD servers versus on-prem servers? So NCOD servers always run the latest version of N-Central, which is 25.2.1. So if you're on an NCOD, you'll have all the functionality available to you. As I said, these REST APIs were introduced in 23.9, and then we saw additions in 24.1, 24.2, 24.4. And 24.6. Now, hopefully, most of you are running relatively up-to-date versions of N-Central. The examples I'm going to show you today, particularly the PowerShell scripts, would require a minimum of 24.6. But if you're on an NCOD server, then you're always going to have all the latest NCOD or API functions available to you as well. And just as we click the mouse, resources and APIs in each resource are frequently updated. So again, as we go through the course today, we'll learn more about how we can look at these. But we'd love to hear your feedback as well. So if there's any functionality you're missing today and you are running the latest versions of N-Central, be sure to let us know, and we'll feedback that back to the relevant teams as well. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about Swagger. And for those who aren't familiar with, maybe some of you actually have used Swagger before, maybe you just weren't aware of what it was called. And actually, Swagger is quite commonly used now by multiple vendors when it comes to API interaction and such. It's an open source framework that allows basically developers and designers document and consume REST APIs. It provides a set of tools to create interactive documentation for APIs, making it easier for developers to understand how to use and interact with the APIs as well. I always start off in the Swagger interface. Now, I might obviously look to build scripts, for example, but I always start within the Swagger interface. So it's a great kind of ground to actually understand what the functionality is available to me, what information is available to me, and test out if I can get that information, extract that information from my N-Central instance as well. In terms of the API documentation, it automatically generates documentation from the API code describing available endpoints, request parameters, responses, and gives us example usage. It's an interactive interface, as I said, so it offers a web-based interface where users can explore and test the APIs directly within their browsers, and allows for making simple requests, seeing responses, and understanding endpoints without actually having to leave the documentation. And it's also standardizing as well. It helps maintain consistency and adhere to standards by defining formal structure for API descriptions using the Open API specification, which is formerly known as Swagger specification as well. Basically, Swagger simplifies API deployment by facilitating the creation of comprehensive, well-structured, and easily understandable API documentation. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to jump into our N-Central instance, and we're going to look at how to create an API-only user account. And then we're going to take that API-only user account and we're going to actually authenticate against the Swagger interface as well. So let me jump into my N-Central interface. I'm logged in at the service organization level. And I always recommend, particularly if you have your own self-hosted on-premise version of N-Central, I do recommend you create your API user accounts at the SO level rather than the system level as well. So we're going to come down to administration, click on user management, click on users, click on create a new user in here. And we'll call this PKBC. We'll call this API, and then we'll just put in the login name. Again, we're not going to use this login name, so we'll just keep it to something made up here. And then we're going to put in a password. Now, we're not going to use username and password, but we obviously have to follow our password compliance rules here within our server as such. And then under assign rules, again, this is where I said you can get very granular with your permissions if you want to define restrictive roles, as I did with the agent reinstall. For the purposes of to the masterclass today, we're just going to stick with the default administrator role. And again, we're going to define access groups. Obviously, without access groups, we wouldn't have any devices that we could target with any of the APIs as well. So again, we're just going to use our default service organization access group as well. Under our user details, we need to click on our user information. And this is where we need to ensure MFA is not required is ticked. If this is not the case, you won't be able to authenticate. And finally, with your API access, we want to make this an API-only user account. So we don't have MFA enabled on the account, but even if the username and password is compromised with this checked, the end user wouldn't have access to the UI of your N-Central server as well. So first of all, we're going to go ahead and save that user account. We're then going to come back in here and find our user account. We're going to click back into the user account after we've saved it, and under API access, we're then going to generate our JSON web token. And this is the actual token that we're going to use to authenticate with the Swagger interface as such. So we want to copy this token. We want to document this token. So if you have a password management tool like Passportal, for example, it's very important they store this information in there as such. As soon as I click this button here, I'm never going to be able to retrieve this token again. if I misplace this token, for example, I will have to regenerate a new token as such. So you want to avoid doing that as well. You also want to avoid your technicians regenerating new tokens. So always have your own APIs, or have APIs for specific API users for specific functions, so that if someone was trying to build a new integration or use a new script, for example, they're not going to affect anything that's already in place with existing JSON Web Tokens as well. So we'll go ahead and click OK there to that. So Prag says, will the token expire any day or any point in time? So the token doesn't expire, but if the user password expires, the token will not be usable until the password has been reset as such, Prag. So the token never expires as long as the password policy is maintained within the account itself. So as long as you keep resetting the password every time it expires, you can still use the same token. So what we're going to do next is we're going to launch into the Swagger interface. And to do so, we're going to click on the My Links tab on our left-hand navigation. We're going to click on API Explorer. This is going to load us into our Swagger interface as such. So here we can start to see the documentation around the APIs. What we need to do, first of all, is click on our Authorize. We're going to paste our JSON Web Token in there. We'll go ahead and click on Authorize here. Go ahead and close, and then we're going to come down to the function group authentication, and then we're going to go to our authenticate, and we're going to click and try it out. I'll click on the execute button, and this is actually going to execute the call that we want. We can see the response code is 200, which tells us that authentication is successful. We can see the token that we want here, and we're just going to grab that from the response, copy that up, and then pop that into our Authorize, and this is where we're going to pop our API access token. So we'll go ahead and click Authorize here, and we're now authenticated with the API, and we will stay authenticated for up to an hour as long as we don't close this web session as well. So now that we understand how we obviously access these APIs, next we're actually going to explore the Swagger interface to get some information, start to see how you can get information out of your N-Central instance as well. Before we do that, I do want to kind of run through a few slides to kind of explain what you're looking at. So rather than just diving straight in and looking at some of the function calls that are available to you, here we have an example of what a function call looks like when you're using the Swagger interface. So first of all, you'll notice with all function calls, they have a color-coded HTTP method. A lot of the time it's going to be get, but you're going to see things like put, patch, delete, and post in there as well. And if you want to learn more about the different HTTP methods within Swagger and the color coordination of those methods as well, if you head over to the enable.com blog page and search up Swagger, you'll find a little blog I produced a couple of months ago that gives you a detailed breakdown of what each function does as well. The path obviously is API. In this particular case, the resource is the devices. So that is the resource group. That is one of those 16 categories that we talked about previously. And then the sub-resource is, in this case, scheduled tasks. And in this particular example, it requires some parameters, and this parameter requires a device ID. So if we were to run this against the API interface or Swagger interface, we would have to specify the device interface, or else it wouldn't be able to return any information. So any parameters that are required have to be defined in order for the calls to be successful as well. So when you're using N-Central API, you may require additional information, and here are a couple of useful tips to getting this information quickly. There are multiple ways you can get this, but sometimes when we're obviously just exploring and testing something for the first time, we want to find how we can get that information as such. So one of the things that is used quite a lot with the APIs is the device ID. Now, the device ID is different to the application or appliance ID. So a lot of times people look at the appliance ID, which is visible within your End Central server, and think that that's the device ID. It's not. The device ID is attainable by actually hovering over a device within your End Central instance, and the little URL preview will pop up in the bottom left-hand corner, and you'll see the device and ID in there like that. So if I pop back into our End Central environment, click up on our all devices, and we'll find my own device in here. So if I hover over my own device, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, a little URL appears with a device ID of 1198.414.398. Now, if I click into the actual device itself, and I click on my settings tab, and I click on my local agent, we can see there's an appliance ID in here, and the appliance ID is actually different to the device ID. So we don't use the appliance ID as such, it's just the device ID we're looking for. So that's why we're hovering over the device name from the all devices view, and that's where we're getting that information. Now, obviously, there are API calls that you can run that don't require device IDs that can generate this information for you as well. And we're going to talk more about the developer port later on, but there's a couple of scripts and automation policies that you can use in there to extract the device ID and write it to a custom property. So that's something I do just to have on hand. So rather than having to hover over something, I built a little scheduled task profile that gets the device ID from the local machine and writes it to a custom property. So I have it to hand should I need it for quickly testing IDs or testing things through the APIs as well. Again, yeah, you need things like customer IDs. The customer IDs are found either from the service organization level for your customers or from the customer level for your sites. So if you come down to administration and click on customers, the customer ID is the access code that you see here as such. So in terms of Celtic Cider Company, for example, it's 133. If I want to get one of the IDs for one of the sites under Celtic Cider Company, I'm going to jump down to the customer level, click on sites, and here we'll see the access codes for these devices as well, or these sites as well. The SO ID, I keep changing this to SQ, and I don't know how it goes, or SO, I don't know how it goes back to SQ, but it's a little typo. That's the service organization ID. So when you're using hosted, by default, it's going to be 50, provided you're creating the user account, you're always going to be creating the user account or the API user account at the service organization when you're hosted. When you are using a self-hosted version, the first SO is always 100. Again, I recommend you create the API user account at the SO level, even if you have multiple SOs, and you can use 50 in those cases as well. A role ID, again, if you're in administration, click on roles. You can hover over the URL to preview that. And in terms of task IDs, there's a few different ways you can see task IDs. So if you go to device details and monitoring, you can hover over a task name there and see the task ID. If you go to job status and hover over the job name, a URL will pop up like we saw previously with the devices, and you'll see the task ID there. Or if you go to scheduled configuration, scheduled tasks, and add and delete and hover over the name, you'll be able to view the URL preview in there to get the task IDs as well. All this information is extractable from the APIs, but sometimes when we're testing and learning this for the first time, we just want to get those codes quickly so we can pop them in and see them as well. So these are some tips to get that information for you as well. Now, when it comes to using End Central APIs, Swagger does have its limitations and some best practices as well. So End Central will limit the number of responses to manage stability, availability, and performance. So you will see some calls have a limit of how many results can be pulled back per page. By default, this is 50, but you can obviously adjust that as such. The maximum amount of calls you can pull back on a page is 1,000 as such. So if you're trying to pull all the devices, for example, maybe you have 2, 3, 4,000 devices and you want to pull them all out, there's going to be multiple pages. You would have to loop through the different pages to get the information for all devices that way as well. If a limit is reached within the Swagger interface, you're going to get a 429 error. But you can also see the different response codes, and these are available within the Swagger interface as well. So 200 indicates that we have successfully got the information that we were looking for. The call has been successful. 401, for example, is authentication failure. This often happens if we haven't properly authenticated with the Swagger interface, or if we're using something like scripts, for example, PowerShell, and we haven't properly authenticated. We'll get that quite a lot as well. 404 is not found. So if you're trying to do something that maybe isn't on your instance of N Central, you'll find that as well. So there are some codes to be aware of, but all these are documented within the Swagger interface as well. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of simple calls to get a bit of information out of the Swagger interface. So if you've never used the APIs before, the last demo obviously showed you how to create a user account and obviously authenticate. Now what we're going to do is let's start getting some information out of our dashboard as such. And this really is a way of confirming the information that you want is available and is in your N Central instance as well. So we're going to jump back into our API Explorer. Now, we're already authorized and we already saw our authentication tab. You can see here, obviously, the color coding of the different calls. So under authentication, we have post and get. In the case of devices, for example, we have push and patch here as well. In the case of the maintenance windows, we also have delete options here as well. There are a couple other ones that we don't currently use within the N Central interfaces today. So these are all the different categories, and obviously these are the subcategories that we see under here as well. So the first thing we're going to focus on is let's get some customers, get a list of customers out of our server as such. So we're going to come down to our org units. So in here, you'll see that there are service orgs, there are customers, there are sites, there are org units in here as well. So depending on what type of information you want, so if you want that parent-child hierarchy, for example, you might look to retrieve the org units. If you simply just want a list of customers, for example, you might simply just use the API customers query here as such. Now, in this particular case, you can see what parameters are available to you. When we go and click this out, none of them are red boxed, so none of them are actually required as such. So if I were to go in here, you can see there's a little required option for this particular one. So if I try and run something here, I'm going to get a little red box to say that this information is missing as such. But if we pop back to our customers one and I go to execute, that's actually going to run for me. Gives me a response code of 200. I can check that off my responses below to see it's successful. So I know it's got the information for me as well. Now you can also see when I executed this call, it gave me an example, or gave me the call that we're using. So this is my N Central server. This is the API. This is the customers, and we're using a sort ascending as the filter option here as such. If we go down through our list here, for example, we can see the different customers in here. We can see information about the customers, the parent ID, the external ID, all the information available there as such. Now, if I want to change how the sort order is, for example, I might choose change to ascending. So I can choose to execute that, and that's going to give me a slightly different result. Or if I choose descending, for example, I can execute there again, and it's going to flip the customers around as well. You also have the ability, if you have a large number of customers, as I said, you're going to see at the end of the results here, information. So there's one page, there's 50 total counts on the page. In this particular case, there's only 7, and there's only a total of 1 page. So now this is a lab environment. In production, you might have many customers. You might have, a scenario where you have 200, 300, 400 customers as such. If you want to include them all in one page, you can just use a -1 in here, and that will ensure that there's no limit in the page size. So that will increase the page size to 1,000 results as such as well. So the customer information obviously is one common use case within the APIs. The other really common one is actually getting device information as such. So we're going to click on our devices here, and we're going to click on get devices. Again, we're going to click on try this out, and we're going to choose to execute this here as well. And again, you can see we have a response code of 200, so we know it's successful. Here now we have quite a bit more information. So if I scroll through this entire list here and right down to the bottom, I can see that there is a page size of 50. There's an item count of 50, but there's actually a total of 62. So I'm actually missing 12 devices from this actually list. So if I were to go and download this result, or if I was to copy this result, I wouldn't have all the device information from my server as such. So this is where we're going to come in and use something like our filter ID, for example. So I can pop in here and put in -1, and I can execute that. And now when we go to our results, we can scroll down to the bottom. We can see that we have one page and we have 62 of 62. So all the devices are displayed there. Or alternatively, if we obviously remove the page size query and instead we do a page number. So if we want to see page 2 as opposed to page 1, we can execute that. And then we can see that the item count is 12. This is obviously page 2. So we have the next 12 items on that list as well. You can see when you use things like the page size or the page number, the actual query that you use is updated here as such. So we use obviously API/devices to get the device information. But by popping a little question mark and page number equals to 2, for example, we can get the relevant information we want as well. Now, where this is particularly useful is if you're looking for something specifically, for example. So we have a select functionality here, and a select functionality allows you to take certain information that an API call returns and obviously look for that. So rather than pulling a huge amount of information from the device as such, I might only want to find the my device information. So I can use the select function to get me that information, and I might base that on long name, for example. Now these are case sensitive, so you can see with a lot of the information it'll be lowercase at the start and it'll have a capital in the middle. It's very important that you copy and paste these so you avoid any typos as such, because they won't work if you don't match the name exactly. So we're going to remove the page number in here and we're going to go to select. We're going to choose long name, and this is where it gets a little bit funky. So rather than saying equals to and the name that we're looking for, you got to do double equals to here. So put in P Kelly -LT4, and then we can go ahead and execute that. We get a response 200 to say it's successful, and now we can see that we've returned information on this particular device, and we can see that there's an item count of 1, and this is 1 of 62 devices. Now I can download that as a JSON payload, or alternatively I can copy this, and obviously I can pop this into my little notepad then. So if I have a notepad here, where did my notepad go? I could go ahead and I can copy the results in here as well. So if I just want to, maybe if I grab 15, 20 devices and I want to search through something and find certain information, I can obviously pop that into Notepad or WordPad and quickly find the information I'm looking for as well. So next, we're going to look at how we can use API to run a task in N-central as such. Now, again, when you were using the Swagger interface, you're really just using it to understand if what you want to do is possible and if it's successful as such. We're showing you this method so that you can understand what you would need to configure, what you would need to kind of script if you were looking at maybe building something from your PSA solution to trigger in your N-central environment as well. But always understanding how it's done, first of all, via the Swagger interface will save you hours and hours of troubleshooting if you just try before, if you just go straight in and try and script something before you ever confirm that it actually works. You could be wasting a huge amount of time. So always look at Swagger first and always understand and test to see if things will work before we go implement it into some form of automation as such. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump back into our Swagger interface. We're going to come up to our scheduled tasks. And under scheduled tasks, we're going to post the scheduled task into our N-central environment. Now, here you can see an example of the schema used to run a scheduled task. When you click on try it out, it goes white. So you can edit this. So when you click on execute, it will use your edited version as the test, as opposed to the information that's available here as such. So if I go ahead and execute this now, for example, we're going to get an error for 403. It was forbidden because the information that we put was not correct. So we're going to change this information here. We're going to call this boot camp PK test Wednesday. This name has to be unique. So, if you're using this through PowerShell, for example, it's always useful to put in maybe a get -date here as well into the script name. So it gives a unique name every time you run it as well. The item ID is the script that you want to run from your repository in N-Central. Now, to get that information, we're going to pop back into N-Central. We're going to pop back up to our service organization level. We're going to come down to our configuration. We'll go schedule tasks and scripts and software repository. And here, and depending on how your screen is laid out, you might have to scroll over a bit, you'll see a repository ID. Now, the repository ID is what we need as our task ID, our item ID, but also the repository item needs to be enabled for the API. So by default, any of the system level will not be turned on. As you can see here, we added a few over the years into our lab environment, and we switched them on as well. If you're looking to run a repository item that is at the system level, what you can do is you can clone a version to the SO level. So I think I have an example here already. So I'm looking at getting the Windows UAC system settings. So I can't obviously turn that on because I don't have system level access. But what I can do is I can clone a version of that at the SO level, enable it for the API, and then grab that repository ID so I can use that within the task that I'm going to run as well. Now, the types of tasks that you can run using the API are either a script, and that is something that's a Windows-based. So if it's PowerShell batch VBS, for example, if it's got the little Windows icon here, you're going to use script in that particular case. If the item has a little blue and green cog, it's an automation policy. In that case, we're going to have to change this from script to automation policy. So this is where I have to make sure I don't have any typos. So it's automation policy with a capital P. The customer ID obviously is the location of the device that we want to target. In my case, it is my own device, and I know that is under 133. And then we also need the device ID, which, as we grabbed from our little policy earlier on, we can see is available here as well. So I also have that available to me within the UI if I hover over the URL of the device. But here we're just going to pop this in here as well. In terms of credentials, we're just going to use the local system credentials, which is what we do for most work within our N-Central environment. And in terms of this particular script, there's no parameters required. So it's going to remove that from the response body as well. And we're going to go ahead and click on execute now. We can scroll down here and we can see we get a result code of 201. It's given us a task ID as well, which we'll come back to in a moment. If we pop into our N-Central server, we can come down to our scheduled tasks under configuration. We can click on add and delete. And then if we click on our direct support tasks in here, we should see our task that we've just run here. So this is just run moments ago. And you can see how quick it is to execute these tasks through the API as well. So it's already run, it's already completed. I can click into that and I can start to see the information here as well. So we can see is task enabled, and we can see the result of the output is UAC enabled equals to true as well. Now, if I cancel out of this here and I hover over this, you can see the task ID is available in the bottom left-hand corner, but also when the API obviously runs the task, it produces that task ID, and I can use that to get more information through other API calls. So if I come down to my scheduled task status details, I can try this out here again. We know that the task ID is required, so we're going to pop that in here. We're going to choose execute. We can see it's successful, and we can start to get information about that task and whether it's successfully run on those devices as well. So Tom says, I'm on an NCOD. How do I get my SOID? It's 50, Tom. When you're on an NCOD, you're always going to use 50 as your SOID. So we've looked at this point of obviously how we can confirm that the functions that we want are possible through the Swagger interface. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to look at maybe using scripts to interact with these policies as such. Now, my preference is PowerShell. Others might prefer Python, for example. Different scripting methods are supported with these APIs as such. We're going to look at a couple of PowerShell examples today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how you can obviously build these functions and use multiple functions within a PowerShell script. And we're going to talk about the developer portal after this, and we'll see where some of these scripts are available to download from as well. So we're going to jump into PowerShell here. And the first thing you need to do is you need to ensure that you authenticate with your APIs. So I have a script here, and there's scripts available in the dev portal that allow you to do this as well. You have your API URL. In my case, it's nerdstraining@enable.com, and then I have my JSON web token in here. And this is just using the authenticate option to basically exchange the JSON web token for the access token so that I establish a connection to my N-central instance. Now, you can put this at the start of any PowerShell script that you create. A lot of the sample scripts that are available in the dev portal don't have this included already. There's this script is separate, but you can obviously tack this onto the top of all the scripts that you create as such, so that it will first authenticate and then run the script afterwards as well. So when we run this on our machine, it should just run successfully, and obviously it won't return any errors if there's no issues, and it just brings us back to the prompt. So we're now authenticated. So what I'm going to actually look at today is using a recent edition as of 24.6 that allows us to get lifecycle information or warranty information out of our N-central instance, but also allows us to modify and update it using the patch API call as well. So if we go back to our PowerShell example here, I've already built a policy that defines the ID of the customer that we want to query. In my case, I'm going to choose my own customer. You can obviously change this accordingly as such. It then has a function to get the customer information. It gets the device information. It gets the devices by customer ID. It gets the lifecycle warranty information. And then basically it combines all that information into a table and exports it to our temp folder, but also exports it onto the screen as well. So if I wanted to do this for all customers, for example, I change this from 133 to 50, but I'm just going to do it for my one particular customer now. I am not authenticated. So let me see if I can do this again. Maybe I have the wrong JSON web token in here. Live demos are always a risk. So we will rerun this. So there we go. So we can see here we have the customer name, the site name, the device ID, the purchase date, and the warranty date as such. So right now, because my devices are mainly lab devices, VM devices, not a lot of warranty information. It's got my own laptop, and it's got information about a FortiGate device here as well. Funny thing about that is the purchase date is after the warranty date as such. So if we go back into my temp folder, I can see what this warranty information is, and I can come across here. I suppose in some cases, depending on the devices you have in N-central isn't always able to recover the correct warranty information. Certain vendors that will remain nameless block a lot of their public API calls to stop us doing this, but there's other ways that you can get this information. And obviously what you can do then is you can come in here and you can update the information as such. So if I say this actually shouldn't be 2019, that's a type there, that should be 2029, for example. I'm going to go ahead and change that. And if just for the sake of argument, we're going to pop that in here as well. And we'll pop it in here to another machine just so we can see it working as well. So we'll look at PE19, our device here, which has got an IP address as well. So we'll go ahead and we'll save our changes to our warranty file. And what we can do now is we can use the set functionality to actually update the warranty information within our N-central server. So if you have out-of-date warranty information, or if you have devices that don't have the correct warranty information, you can use one script, obviously export information. You can update that spreadsheet then, and you can use this script then to re-update that warranty information as well. So we'll go ahead and run this here again. You can see it's running through all the devices for this particular customer. And in this particular case, I don't even have to specify the customer I want to update, because it's just pulling the information from the actual CSV file that's already in place as well. So if we jump back to our export warranty information again, and we run this now, we can see this time around that the information should have additional information in here. So we can see where it's actually written that information, and we can see it's updated that information from 2019 to 2029 as well. So if we jump back into our N-central instance now, and if we go to our all devices, and if we click into our top device there where we change warranty, we can click on the asset tab, and we can see the warranty information is now set to January 2nd, 2029. And if we click in configuration, we can see the purchase date and warranty date is set in there as well. So this is a really useful example of how you can use APIs today to actually update things within your N-central system. So if you had to do this all manually, it's going to take hours, if not days, depending on the devices. This allows you to target specific customers, get the information, ensure the information is up to date. Maybe you have a third-party tool that has warranty information available to you already. You can update your files, write them back into your N-central server, and see the information within N-central. And that's going to impact things like the warranty status monitoring in N-central and the warranty reports once that information is changed as well. So the last thing we're going to look at today, and I have referenced it throughout, is the Enable Developer Portal. And that's going to make it even easier for you, again, to work with the N-central APIs. So while there is documentation available within Swagger as well, there's even more information available to you within the Developer Portal as such. So you can access the Developer Portal now by going to developer.n-able.com. There is no additional charge for accessing this. You can access it freely. And we have sections available currently for N-central, Nsight, Take Control, and Cove as well. Here you will obviously find things like API reference guides, so you can get more information on the API calls that you're using. We have step-by-step guides, and we have what we call recipes. This is a legacy callback to our cookbook days, but these are where we have sample scripts that you can use to start, rather than having to build these scripts yourself. You can take these kind of sample scripts and edit them accordingly. We also have kind of getting started guides in here, and we also have a change log as well. So particularly when it comes to recipes, I think in the N-central side of things, there's over 800 recipes or something like that. So if you want to keep up to date of what's been added, always check out the change logs. Every time we post something now to the dev portal, we'll make a little note within the change log as well. So let's jump into our web browser again, and let's go to developer.n-able.com. Here we can see our developer portal homepage. In our particular instance, we're interested in N-central. So we're going to click on our N-central RMM. And here you can start to see all the different guides that are available for you to help you get started with using these N-central APIs as such. There's some videos in here that will help guide you along the way as well. If we look at something like the API reference, for example, here we can actually see all the different functions that are available. If we come down to something like devices, for example, and we want to retrieve a list of devices as such, we can see all the parameters that are required in here. We can see the information, the responses in here, but also on the right-hand side, you can see you have your credentials and your URL. And this actually allows you to, rather than using Swagger, interface with the developer portal when it comes to doing your queries as such. So I can go in here, and if I go back to my, we don't save that. Let's get my JSON web token in here. So we'll go ahead and copy that out there. I can pop in my token in here, and then I can pop in my N-Central server, nerds training. Actually, what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to authenticate. So I'm going to come up to authenticate in here, and we're going to obtain a token. So we're going to click on our second one down, click on nerds training, pop in my token in here, click on try it out. And we got an error, clicked on the wrong one. Always do that. Pop my token in here. Got my nerds training in there already. Click on try it out. And we can see we got a response to 200. So I can then copy that token, come down to my devices, and I can click on retrieve a list of devices in here. And then when I go to try this out here now, we can see that the token is incorrect because I have the wrong one. So we'll just clear that. We'll pop that in there, click and try it out. And you can see we get a response code of 200, and it gives me that information here as well. So this is an alternative way of using the APIs if you're learning off. So you have obviously your reference manuals in here as well. So you can obviously learn and understand a lot more about that by using the dev portal as well. Here also is where you'll find all the recipes. So as I said, there is numerous different recipes available in here, from PowerShell scripts codes. We have amps. We have examples of how you can create an API access token in here, for example. So if I click on a recipe here, we can see the PowerShell code is available to me here as such. I can copy that and save that locally. It gives me the steps to actually take in order to implement this within my environment as well. So we can see each one. And if we click on these here, if there's any notes, we can obviously see what methods we need to do here as well. Also, obviously, you can search in here. So a lot of the sample code that I put in under NC REST API. N-Central REST API as such, so I can search in here. And if I click on the little blue tab here as such, you can see the different recipes that are available in here as well. So these are all the ones that I've added recently around the custom properties. But again, if you pop back to the recipes, they are currently ordered in the order that they were uploaded in. We are going to make some changes to how this is laid out as well. But if you scroll right down to the end, you can see the recent additions to the actual the recipe portal here as well. And finally, if you click into your changelog, you'll see all the latest information. So for example, last week we updated custom property import export scripts. So it does break down what was updated. You do obviously have to be running 24/6 or later. There are limitations into 1,000 devices, as I said, that you can run these against as such, but you can kind of get an idea of what's happening within the dev portal here as well. So guys, we are coming up at the top of the hour. We do have a couple of questions. So if you have any further questions, please feel free to pop them in there now. So Wilfred Van Heron says, would it be possible to have N-Central API communicate with a different API? Where would be the best to find out more resources or cross API communication as such? So obviously, with N-Central, I suppose the first thing is understanding what's possible with the N-Central APIs, Wilfred. So a lot of times you're pulling information from the N-Central. We've seen there's obviously a patch example with the warranty information today, and a put example with the schedule task profile. But a lot of time, a lot of the API calls are pulling information as such. So depending on what you're trying to achieve, Wilfred, you may need to look at what's possible on the other API and the other software application, the other side as such. So look at the lab manual, look at not the lab manual, look at the dev portal for information as such, but also look at the other vendor and reach out to the team here at Enable. We have solutions engineers that are more than happy to help. The head nerds are always available to look and query and point in the right direction as well. So hopefully those resources will be able to assist you as well. Ron says, can I use the filter endpoint to retrieve a list of devices from the SO level? You certainly can. So if we jump back into our API Explorer, what you need to do first of all, obviously, is find the device filter that you're looking for. So you might have to try that out, execute it. You get a list of all the different filters, and then you might want to find Cove devices, for example. So I'll just take the filter ID here. And then when I come down to my devices, I can actually go to devices here. I can try it out and I can pop my filter ID in here. And then when I execute that, it should just show me the Cove devices as such, which in my case is just my own lab device here as well. But you can see that working, Ron, in real time as well. Prag says, any rate limiting for the APIs? Yes, Prag, we covered that earlier on. So there are limitations in place. And if you get an error 49, that means you've hit the rate limits as such. In terms of things like devices per page, the maximum number you can pull is 1,000. The default is set to 50, but you can use the -1 option to remove that 50 limitation as well. Ricardo, is it possible to pull data from REST APIs into Power BI? I would imagine it is. Ricardo, you've seen obviously some PowerShell examples of how you can pull that information. So I'm sure you could script that in to Power BI to pull the information in there as well. Genesis, can I pull and min use a list for each device for a client? So not through the APIs as such, because that information isn't stored within N-Central. But you could obviously use an automation policy in N-Central, and they're available within the recipe section of the dev portal. So get users or get local admin users as such, and you can store that maybe in a custom property or just run it as a recurring task as well. All right, guys, that is all the questions answered. One more question. Tom says, I get an error message, unable to validate UI session. Can I just log a ticket for assistant with APIs, or is it provided as is? No, you can certainly log assistance, Tom. If you are not authenticating, I would just double check things like your API user account, make sure MFA is disabled on it, make sure it's an API only user account as such, make sure you have the right JSON Web Token. You should be able to figure it out. Usually it's either we didn't take MFA, not or do not use MFA. That's the most common one I see. Or if it's an existing API user account, maybe the password is expired and needs to be reset as well. Alrighty. I'm conscious of everyone's time, guys. We did allocate an hour to this today. So I won't keep you any longer, but if you do have any further questions, you're more than welcome to drop me an email at paul.kelly@n-able.com, and I'd be very happy to address those questions for you there as well, guys. I want to thank you for your time today. I hope you found the session beneficial. I hope you learned something. I hope you can actually take that away and implement it. If you need any support, if you need any assistance, if you just want to run something by me, guys, as I said at the start, my virtual door is always open. You're more than welcome to ping me, and I'll do my very best to help you or find someone who can help you as well. Have a great rest of your day, guys, and we'll see you on a masterclass or office hours in the future. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.